Hello to you all, and welcome to another Shopper Intelligence Liquor webinar. This time we are looking at some of the fascinating shifts from our brand new research into behaviours in this channel, in the liquor channel, since the peak of the COVID crisis during 2020. So many of you have been asking us what's going on in liquor, what's happened since the crisis. You've been engaging with a lot of our grocery content, and now we've been able to bring you this first view of some really live data. So if this is your first time with us, welcome. I hope over the next 45, 50 minutes or so, you're going to get some nice, meaty, juicy things to take back into your business today. And if you've been with us previously for other sessions, then welcome back. And I hope this one is going to hit the spot for you too. Remember, as always, we're going to share a copy of this recording with you later in the day. I did mention this just a few seconds ago, so maybe not everyone heard this, but we are trying a new piece of kit today. It's called Webinar Ninja. It looks pretty cool, but I will just say if we appear anything less than ninja-like at any point, bear with us. But with a bit of luck, we should be fine. For your benefit, I'm just going to flick back over here. What you want to know about really is that the chat function is over on, well, it's on this side of your screen. And actually, a lot of you have already found the polls already. So the polls are live throughout the session. If you scroll down, you will find them. Obviously, we'll introduce them as we go along. But if you want to do what some people are doing already and start voting, then that's even better. Also, if you want to send a specific question to us one-to-one in private, then you'll see the questions tab, which is just to the left of polls. So quick little rundown of how this one works. I wanted to say good morning as well to my colleague and co-pilot for today, Ming. Good morning, Ming.
Good morning, everyone. Can't wait to get stuck in and share these new findings with you guys as well.
Absolutely. More to come from Ming very, very shortly. Now, it's been a pretty big year for liquor. I suppose it's been a pretty big year all round, really, whichever way you look at it. Some of the numbers, though, that are coming through in liquor, as you will all be very well aware, are quite extraordinary. Coles first quarter results on liquor plus 17%. Not to be outdone, I can't say that today. EDG then came through with 21% growth on the quarter. Absolutely stonking, as I said in a post somebody picked up on LinkedIn recently. Now, many of you are already getting involved with the polls already, but I'd like to get you kind of formally involved with this right from the off today. So that first poll, if you scroll down, looks at really, I guess, the reasons behind this growth from a shopper point of view. From your perspective, which of those factors that we've called out there are most important, do you think, now to shoppers post-COVID? So the options there, if you scroll down your screen, you'll find premium options, you'll find healthy choices. Number 3 is innovation, as in new ideas, new products. And then your fourth option is price. Of course, a lot of talk about recession, around the financial challenges that we're going to face in this country, but all around the world. So price is a big one. Let me just flick back there and see what's coming through. This is the beautiful thing about this this piece of kit, is that the numbers are coming through live. So 21 of you, so 55% of you have voted so far for price. What's coming in second? Health at 30%, premium options at 10%, and innovation is only at about 2.5–3%. So the clear winner at the moment is price. Fascinating view from you all. Thank you for taking part. We're going to cover some of these now as we go through. All 4 of those themes, of course, featured in our State of the Nation presentation, which I know, probably about 400 or 500 people have heard so far this year. So thank you for getting involved. The polls are there. As I keep saying, you can chip into those whenever you like, and we will take a look at more of those themes in a mo as we move forward. Now, of course, as we plot the path through to Christmas and on into 2021, understanding how the liquor shopper, your liquor shopper, has changed, and if they have, what are those changes, is going to be so critical for sales, and from a sales perspective, as well as from a brand loyalty perspective. And that's why the reason we exist at Shopper Intelligence, for me, is more powerful than ever. Shoppers are the common denominator between suppliers and retailers. It is our behaviors as shoppers that ultimately determine what goes in the basket and what stays on the shelf. So putting them at the heart of your conversation gets better results. Senior contact at a manufacturer was talking to me recently about the journey that her business is on right now. And she said to me, we have to get closer to our retail customers' individual needs. We have to be more shopper-centric. So simply, if you're in a marketing role, you want to be delivering more effective activations. If you're in a commercial role, you want your proposals to have more bite, have more authority when you take them out to your customer. If you're in an insights role, you want to land more telling insights that will shift the dial on performance. And all of this starts with shoppers. Now, as I said, we have seen some fascinating shifts, some big shifts in behavior that really are going to call for some big shifts in approach. And among those that we're tracking, we have seen the following. Number one, we've seen an increase in impulse buying in liquor, accompanied by more occasion-based shopping, more short-term consumption needs. Secondly, we have seen the polarization of the market between those categories in which price is becoming more important. Many of you feeling that that is the number one topic for shoppers right now. But we're also seeing those categories where shoppers are looking for more premium options, more higher tier options. And thirdly, perhaps inevitably, but nevertheless noteworthy, we've seen this increase in the relevance of health and healthy choices to liquor shoppers. It was already on the rise over the last couple of years, but it has stepped on again in this post-COVID period. And with that, the desire for more innovation and inspiration, that is accompanying that focus on healthier choices. Now, today, we're going to explore the first of those themes in more detail over the next 30 to 40 minutes or so. We're going to get under the skin of this trend around impulse buying and look at it from a few different angles. First, though, for those of you who are wondering what we've done, how we did it, let me just cover that off very quickly before we get stuck in. What we do at Shopper Intelligence is benchmark Australian shopper perceptions, behaviours, attitude. We do it week in, week out, every week of the year, so that you can respond to what your shoppers are thinking, what they want, and how they're behaving at category level, at retailer level. Very much this is about the why. The panel, the scan, the loyalty data tells you what has happened. We can tell you why. So for this piece of research, we've taken our big pool of 24,000 shoppers, covering all the key banners, all the formats, categories, demographics, and so forth. And we have cut that sample from around about the middle of August to the middle of September. We've compared 2019 with 2020 to give you a consistent time period for comparison and also for analysis. So putting that into context very quickly, you're looking at results today from a sample of around about 8,500 shoppers in each year. Those shoppers, as you can see on screen now, coming from all of the major banners in Australia. And of course, as many of you will know, those shoppers are surveyed online shortly after their last trip with a single consistent questionnaire across all categories. And that is what allows you to pull out those subtle little differences, those subtle little nuances that make your category stand out from another. Okay. So that poll that we looked at earlier talked about some of the key industry topics. So let's just run around the ground quickly, set the scene. I want to give you a little bit more context for today. Here are 4 big ideas for you from this new piece of research that we have now. So the first of these, importance of healthy options. The statement shoppers are responding to it here is very simple. There are a good range of choices that are better for me, for my family's health and well-being in the category in which I shop. Plus 7% in the August-September this year versus August-September 2019 comparison. That is a big step on a topic that was already gaining in traction and gaining in importance anyway. Linked to that, we have the importance of responsible drinking. So when I shop in the category with this retailer, they are helping me to drink responsibly. I think we can understand and appreciate why this is becoming more relevant. Again, a big step on this, plus 8% versus the pre-COVID period last year. Next one, the importance of premium. Now, what this is about is specifically the question is when I buy premium products in the category in which I shopped, I really notice the difference. So it's not necessarily about the presence, but it's about the delivery of premium, and therefore the price premium that a product carries and the justification for that. That is up 3%. So shoppers want now to feel that that premium product is justifying its price tag, but only by about 3%. Now, the final one I'll call out here is their willingness to pay a bit more. So these two themes closely linked. The specific question here is, I don't mind paying a bit more for some types of products in this category if I feel I'm getting better quality or something different. So that is your, if you like, your genuine sense of the demand for premium, whereas on the left-hand side, you have the importance of premium delivering for shoppers. But that final one is just plus 2%. So more modest increases on the bottom half of this chart compared to those increases around health, responsible drinking. Just bear these things in mind as we go through today. Sets a bit of the context on what is really the most important to shoppers right now in the present time. So coming back to the big headline for today, it is that we have seen more impulse buying now in liquor than we were seeing 12 months ago, and therefore a shift in terms of the role and importance of everything that goes on within the store. In absolute terms, this 5% increase translates into about 1 in 4 purchases, which are now being decided upon only once the shopper is in store. So anecdotally, with the sales increases that are being reported, we're seeing more unplanned consumption. We're seeing smaller, we're seeing less organized consumption occasions. And we'll come back to consumption occasions in a few minutes or so. So it's going to be more appropriate now to review your marketing plans, your marketing spend, and assess the ratio of in-store versus pre-store activity and the emphasis that you give those two components. You're looking now more at the role of shelf, the role of your displays, the role of your secondary space to capture this more impulsive shopper in liquor. And here again is some more proof of something that we always say, which is don't judge your category by another, because mindsets and behaviors in other categories, in other channels, do not necessarily play out uniformly. Many of you, as I said, have been tracking what we've been researching and what we've been finding out in grocery during the course of this year. And in fact, it is quite the opposite. Shoppers in grocery have gone the other way. You can see from the chart, and that +4 there represents how levels of planning have been elevated since the shock way back in March, April. Feels like a long time ago now. I know it wasn't actually that far ago, but it does feel like it some days. And they have remained high, and it's only recently that we've started to see those levels of planning actually drifting back down to what you might consider to have been pre-COVID levels. So actually, food and grocery, it's been the opposite message. We've been talking much more to businesses there about the emphasis in the channel on pre-store comms, getting onto the shopping list, being part of the big shop, being part of the main shop. Obviously, now here we're comparing two channels, right? So it's the highest level of comparison. But as you come down through departments, you come down through categories, you will see the same thing because behaviors are not uniform right across and throughout the store. So the key takeout here is just how important it is to have that granular perspective, because that's what's going to put you in the best position to talk to your trading partners credibly and target growth in the future. Now, on the subject of trading partners, we've got a great blend this morning of manufacturers and retailers on the call, on the session. So it's very apt, I think, that I should refer here to another of our mantras, very similar to the last one, but it is don't treat two retailers the same. So thinking again of that industry contact who said to me recently, we have to be more customer orientated. We have to respond to their individual needs better. And that means understanding their shoppers. So Ming is going to walk us through what we've got here. Ming, over to you. Hello, Ming. Are you there, Ming?
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, you got a bit of echo though. Have you got a second mic you need to mute, perhaps?
No.
Okay, you've gone a bit echoey. Try it. Let's see how we get on. Try
All
again.
right. Okay. So we've seen the headline figure of plus 5%, and that was plus 5% of more impulse purchasing, but that's all banners and all channels. But as David alluded to here, if we look beneath the headline, we see some really interesting differences. So at the high end, when David pulls it up, it's Aldi who's seen the biggest increase in impulse buying in liquor year on year. So plus 13% versus the same period in 2019. So Aldi's current strategy of tight range, simple price messaging, and the location of where their liquor is in store will perfectly cater itself to their shoppers' less planned approach as well. And worth noting here that Aldi's also done particularly well year on health and also on delivering new ideas in liquor as well. So up on the screen, you'll see Dan's and BWS comes up next as plus 8% and 6%. And in fourth place is First Choice at plus 4% more impulse buying. But on the other hand, completely on the opposite side of the spectrum, you'll see Bottle Mart has seen a 12% shift in the opposite direction. So considerably more planning among Bottle Mart shoppers compared to the same time in 2019. Celebrations and Vintage Cellars also a more planned shop now, but a bit more modest, so 3% in each case. So on this basis, it's quite evident that your conversations with Aldi must be very different to your conversations with Bottle Mart, as well as very different plan emphasis and activations too. David.
Lovely. Thank you. So I was just checking on the chat because a few people were saying they couldn't see the slides advancing, but I think we've got it sorted now from what I can gather. So hopefully you're all good and you can see things moving on. Thank you for that, Ming. What we're going to do now is, if I can orientate myself around what happens next, is head into another poll. So thanks again, Ming. I think that's a great example again of how we can cut into a little bit more detail and you can really start to get a bit more granular. Now, our second poll, which many of you will have already spotted, so we should have some live results when I get back in there, is all about age groups and how those age groups are behaving differently in relation to impulse shopping. So I'm going to pop back in again. It's the one thing about this piece of kit that I have to dip in and out of. Second question down is, if you can scroll down your screen, you'll see these results as well. Which age groups have seen, or which age group has seen the biggest increase in impulse buying since COVID? So again, the comparison is August-September 2019 versus August-September 2020. People are still voting, but interestingly, it is basically 30% voting for the 18 to 34-year-olds, 2/3 voting for the 35 to 54-year-olds, and just a meager 2.78%. One person going for the over 55s. Good for you. It's good to be different. The answer, as we will find out very shortly, is going to surprise some of you, perhaps not as many as others. But let us take a quick look at that. The other thing I'm just going to do quickly as well is have a look at the questions, see if anything is coming in that we want to have a look at the minute. But it mostly looks like it was admin-y things so far. So we're going to carry on. Don't forget the question tab. Oh, I did have one question. Yes, somebody asking me about the recording. So we will share the recording once we've processed everything. We'll share the recording back out to you later today. Fear not. Okay, so with that, let us take a look. And sticking and heading back, in fact, to Ming, obviously, it doesn't just matter, does it, which banner you're focusing on, but of course, which demographic you're targeting as well. Now, we've seen this more impulsive behavior from all age groups, but what's interesting is, as many of you have correctly surmised, it's actually not the younger shoppers who are leading the way. So what's the story, Ming? What's afoot?
All right, so let's build a few of our shoppers in. So we'll have Zach, Cheryl, and Keith coming up. So each of these guys represent one of our key age groups. So you've got your under 34s, your 35 to 54s, and your over 55s. So if you're in one of our State of the Nation presentations earlier this year, you'll remember that younger shoppers tend to be the most impulsive shopper. And now what we're seeing is that they are plus 4% even more likely to be impulsive. but it's that middle age group who have shifted the most at plus 7% versus last year. So majority of you got it right down in the poll. I think it's about 68% of you said it was that middle age group. So now, although the under 34s are still the most impulsive age group, so around 1 in 3 decide on their purchase in store, it's that middle cohort that are growing the fastest, and they're not far behind. So they're at 28% being impulsive. So in other words, in-store delivery and captivation is important not only to those categories that are traditionally favored by younger drinkers, but it's becoming more important for other categories too.
And this, of course, could be really important over the next coming months, next few months, as we get into those traditionally big liquor months, the big months coming up over Christmas and the New Year. Now, thanks again, Ming. I will come back to you in a moment or two. Now, I mentioned, and we talked very briefly earlier about occasions. So let's now look at that dimension as well in a little bit more detail. Accompanying this increase in impulse buying, I think I mentioned this right at the start, we've seen an even greater increase in shoppers buying for same day consumption. So really, we're not seeing the same stocking up tendencies that we saw in grocery. I think back to, I mentioned our State of the Nation presentation, I think back to some of the commentary around that in sort of March, April was about people going out buying very significant amounts of alcohol, trying to stock up, bulk up and buy up. But actually across the board now, we're not seeing those same kind of tendencies as we have on and off through grocery throughout the period. The groups that are most likely to exhibit this sort of behavior are male shoppers, shoppers between 35 and 54 years old, again, so that middle age group. And interestingly as well, because we've got a view for region by region, and that's become ever more relevant given the different restrictions that we've been under around the country, region by region. But those living in New South Wales and those living in Victoria are actually proving the most likely to exhibit this same day consumption behavior. And with this, we're also seeing purchases linked to specific occasions on the rise as well. So Ming, back over to you for this one.
Yeah, so you can see the 3 leading growth occasions when David pulls it up correlates with the restrictions we've all been living under. So you're seeing drinks with meals up 7%, relaxing at home plus 6%, and for the Kickstarter, plus 5%. So what I found most interesting and the most surprising fact here is that RTDs have actually seen the greatest growth in buying to drink with a meal, so plus 12%, and this is driven by your bourbon RTD. And if you combine this with the emergence of your New World RTDs, premix is now the second department after wine in which their shoppers are buying for this drink with a meal occasion. So if you're working with premix, this is a great opportunity to leverage and expand from that party socializing scene. And we also see spirits up there, so plus 8%. So rum saw the biggest growth here and now has the highest percentage of its shoppers drinking with a meal versus other spirits categories. So again, if you're working in these departments, it's a good ground here to suggest that you've made inroads towards being seen as a viable meal occasion option beyond wine. And with more in-home drinking since COVID, shoppers are looking for more variety and different options to switch things up with their meals. So how can you further leverage this trend? Is there a specific meal occasion you can really start linking or associating your products to? And as far as relaxing at home occasion is concerned, so plus 6%, we're seeing the same top 2 growth drivers here being spirits and RTD, but switched in places. So spirits up on top at 9% for being bought to have while relaxing in the home, and RTDs up plus 8%. And to put this into context, RTD was already the second highest department after cider, where the relaxing at home within the relaxing at home occasion. So this growth of 8% is quite significant. And incidentally, beer gains on both these occasions put that department in third. In third,
yeah. Lovely. Okay, so I mean, combining this with that impulse theme that we are talking about earlier, the action from all of this really is about talking to those short-term consumption needs, those immediate occasions at the shelf, hooking the right categories up with the right occasions, basically, and making that association clear through your in-store comms. I talked about it on LinkedIn yesterday. I'm fascinated by the idea that there's this big shift in terms of RTDs and spirits as a credible offer during mealtime alongside wine. I think that really gives you, if you're operating in those categories and those departments, something to think about. You also know now in terms of the demographics and the age groups that you can go after, and it gives you something very concrete, I think, to start to build around. There are certainly some very different drinking occasions occurring right now, so shoppers are in search of something different. I will just mention this now. If the full report, or with all of the detail and all of the depth on all of these angles, plus all of the data that sits behind it, is available. If you're interested in having a chat with us about that and finding out a bit more about it, just go ahead and hit yes, or type yes, I should say, in the question box, and one of us will come back to you later today to have a chat with you about it. So we've talked about demographics, we've talked about the occasions that people are buying for. The final component that on this topic, on this theme, that I wanted to just build in and touch on was around the use of space in store. If your approach, or if the approach, I should say, to your category is changing, then where should you be looking to get the optimal traction for those in-store messages? We know in-store messages becoming more important, so the question is, where should they be positioned? At a total store level, the answer is very much main aisle. Okay, I know main aisle is main aisle, but what we're seeing is that purchases from the main aisle or the home location are actually up 9% versus this time last year. And as you can see, as I build it out, the range is really interesting as well. Banner by banner, you've got Bottle Mart, a much more modest increase in buying from the main aisle at 2%, all the way up to Dan Murphy's up at 13%. Dan's also very high, incidentally, on the increase in impulse buying. Other components, other groups that we see buying more from the main aisle, the over 55s, plus 19%. Really using that as their de facto location, even more than perhaps they traditionally do. Beer at plus 14 from a department perspective, cider at plus 13. After that, there's been an increase in buying from those displays that are situated at or very near the entrance of the store. Understandable, perhaps, if shoppers, particularly in some regions, still want to get in and get out as quickly as possible. It is a more modest increase, but nevertheless, it is worthy of note. 1.5% at a total liquor level. The range there is narrower as well. So you've got spirits, excuse me, down at 1%, and beer just the opposite side at about 2.2%. Gives you again an idea, an indication of where you could potentially put a little bit more focus. Lastly, just for comparison purposes, we can see how buying from the fridge, when we compare August, September this year with August, September last year, we actually see that's gone down, -4%. Biggest decline here, I'm looking at the regions. So geographically, WA down -7, and SA just -1. From a category perspective, it's RTD vodka that's seeing a lot less purchasing going on from fridge, -12. Then you have cider. Then you have premium beer, actually, -10% on purchasing from the fridge. So I guess at a total store level, that more impulsive behavior looks to be sending people to the home location where they feel perhaps that they'll find the most inspiration. But you can, and you might be able to head them off nearer the door with something that's new, that's different, that is eye-catching. As we head into our third poll, we'll also stop for a couple of questions because I've had one that's come in. But the third poll, before I go to some questions, we'll look at this very quickly, looks at the role of price and the importance of value. I'm going to pull this up whilst we are here. So the question is, which department has seen the biggest increase in shoppers' willingness to consider low price or value orientated brands? Pretty overwhelmingly in favor of beer. So the vote is going towards beer. 71% of you saying it's beer. Wine comes at 22%. And we got two votes, 5.7% of the vote going for premix. So we will come on to this in just a moment, and I will tell you what our research is telling us. But a question here from from one person on the session. So we are seeing less experimentation and more buying of mainstream brands in other data. Do you think that this still holds true, even though impulse buying is up? So first of all, thank you very much for the question. I mean, absolutely, I would say it has the opportunity, the potential to hold true, because remember, we are looking predominantly today at total liquor. We are breaking down so far as departments. But if there is one key takeaway from today's session and from, I think, everything that we have seen from shoppers this year, it is, and I think I said it earlier, but you cannot judge at a rolled up level how your performance in your individual category is going to pan out. We've seen this right across grocery, and we're seeing it in the deeper level of data we have on this research at category level, how some are playing out very, very differently. We're going to touch on these this concept in a moment. But it is true as an overarching theme that we're seeing more impulse, but it wouldn't be wise to assume that that is happening across the board. So if you're seeing different behaviors, if you're seeing that move to mainstream brands, absolutely, that is perfectly legitimate. And we have also seen an element of that in our data as well. But on the flip side, we are also seeing, as I'm going to come on to in a minute, in other areas, a search for more premium, a search for more innovation and inspiration. So we absolutely have this polarization. Both data sets can offer you good value, I think, in terms of pinpointing the most appropriate direction, the most appropriate course over the coming 3, 6, 9, even 12 months. So thank you very much for that question. Let me just scan down the chat, see what else is coming in. Full recording, yeah, presentation, full recording coming out later. And I can see Holly reminding everyone, you got to scroll down the page to get to questions and polls, but a lot of you have fathomed that already. So hopefully you're finding this to be a good piece of kit. We'll perhaps ask you about that in a moment. As we reach the conclusion here, then, let us just head into one or two final topics, and they are related to actually that last question. It is an interesting, sorry, I was just going to say an interesting bit of context for you really before we wrap up on this point about low price and value brands, very much to the question we just talked about there, and that is this in a broad sense, now is certainly a good opportunity from what shoppers are reporting to be landing messages about innovation and about new ideas in your category. We have seen a 6% increase in the importance on this one. And remember, as I always say on this measure, it is not just about NPD. So this question around innovation at this point in our survey is very broad. It's about new ideas, inspiration, innovations, and new products. Those that are leading their desire for more innovation are, again, it's male shoppers, it's 35 to 54-year-olds, those in New South Wales in particular. From a department perspective, it's actually more orientated here towards spirits and RTDs. So I didn't discover which department the question came from that came in just now, but it's spirits and RTDs that are leading in terms of the desire for newness, for new ideas, new inspiration. First choice, massive step up, 23% increase in the importance that first choice shoppers are attaching to innovation. IGA Liquor comes next at 16% increase, and then Bottle Mart at a plus 10%. So, I mean, I think, again, this just bears out the concept that what you take as a headline figure, headline idea, then you start to break it down by banner, by generation, by department, by category, and actually you could end up in slightly quite a different place actually from an activation perspective. Nevertheless, in broad terms, if I roll it back out, what we're seeing here is really now a need, an opportunity to invest in new ideas at shelf. That could be information. It could be occasion matching. We talked about that earlier. It could be NPD, so long as that NPD is adding value to your category. And that brings us nicely to our close today. Where do you actually want to be looking in terms of innovation opportunities? Is it at the value, or is it at the premium end of your category? Well, the answer at a total liquor level, which is that we've seen an increase of 5% in shoppers who are willing to consider those lower price bands or those value brands. And the department that is leading the way on that, as I think 3/4 of you correctly identified, is beer. So just referring you back to that poll a moment ago. So beer is very much leading on this retreat to value, if you like. More shoppers there are signaling their comfort to try unfamiliar or lower price bands. Other groups heading in that direction include, excuse me, I've lost my note on that. Where is it? I'll come back to that in a moment. Now, it's I think reflecting on that question again, it's not as cut and dried as all that. There is certainly a great deal of nuance when you dig into individual categories, but it does again highlight that a desire for innovation and new ideas doesn't always necessarily translate into an opportunity to trade up. So you really do need to understand the dynamics in your category before making any assumptions. Final comparison, similar question that we ask shoppers in our grocery program actually finds that willingness to consider private label products up a little bit less, up about 3% across all categories in grocery. And with private label, of course, I understand that doesn't necessarily mean value or budget offerings. Incidentally, the don't mind paying more, I don't mind paying more quality was actually a little bit higher in grocery at the moment at +5%. It's only about +2 in liquor. So this just gives you a sense of how these two themes of value and premium are playing out at a total level in each channel. But again, the key action here, the key takeaway is you have to get under the skin of this within your particular category. And you have to understand where value is a threat versus an opportunity. What is that going to mean for your brand portfolio going forward? And of course, from a ranging perspective, you may find that you need to pull slightly heavier on the value lever versus slightly heavier on premium. You're going to be thinking more about pricing in one direction or the other. And of course, that shelf focus on value is going to need to come through depending on where you're sitting on the spectrum. I will take one last quick little dive into our questions.
David, I was just going to say, yeah. I can help you with that. In that +5% willingness to try low price brand products, where you said it was leading by beer. So the other groups heading in that direction, they include retailer wise. You've got First Choice, IGA, and Bottle Mart that are most where their shoppers are most willing to try low price brands now post COVID, and it's driven by males and in New South Wales.
Smashing. That's why you have a co-pilot. Thank you very much. I've got a stack of paper here. I had no idea on which piece of paper those details are written. So thank you very much for that. So yes, and good summary. Now, I just had another question in which says, it would be interesting to see the differences in shifting of importance of factors like health, price, premium, split by categories. You're right. Thank you very much for that. It is interesting, and we have all of that in the full detail and the full report, broken down by all of our key questions. In fact, it breaks it down by category. Of course, it breaks it down by banner, by age group, by region, by department, and then also by category. So as I said, if that's something that you're interested in, then just hit yes in the questions box, and we can tell you a little bit more about what is available there. I will have a look at what else is coming through. Just again, another reminder to keep scrolling down to get to the polls. I think we're okay on that. Okay, somebody didn't grab one of the stats earlier, not seeing the builds. Apologies for that. Hopefully it's that's worked itself out, whatever little gremlin you had. I think that is all that's come through for us for now on the questions and answers side of things. So that is us pretty much for today. I'm going to give you the gift of time. You have 15 to 20 minutes back in your day to have a coffee before your next meeting or your next team session. That is us. As I said, I'll leave you with those three themes again. More impulse. We have seen the polarization around price and quality, and last but not least, the heightened role for health and innovation. I'll leave you with a couple of ideas, a couple of things you can do next. If you haven't already, then follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss any of our liquor or our grocery updates from across the region. I'm just going to throw this out to you in case I've forgotten anything else. So just give me another little co-pilot nudge if I've forgotten anything else before I wrap everything up. If not, the other thing that you can do if you need more of this kind of insight to help improve your planning, your performance, your activation in liquor, then contact me. I'll be very happy to give you any information you need on the new Liquor Shopper After the Crisis report. Thank you again for taking the time for joining us today. As we said, the recording will be available before the end of the day, and I hope to speak to you all again very soon. Have a marvelous day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.